just lines up the audio to the thing. So there we go. And pretend I'm not here.
Okay. Hi, I'm Amy and I'm 13, and I'd just like to ask you a few questions concerning your work with Jamie Oliver, with the school food stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how did you get to like meet him, learn, like, you know,
So
how did this all
So
start?
I knew Jamie when he had written his second book, and he came to find me as a food-loving nutritionist. So I got this call from Jamie Oliver. In those days, you know, Jamie Oliver was just, another person to speak to. So I went and met him, and he said, I gather you really love your food as well as being sort of a medical practitioner, because that was unusual, because a lot of people in the food world, especially the health food world, were always seen as the people that only ever ate lettuce leaves and bean sprouts. So Jamie and I struck up a friendship really early on. And so we got to know each other because we were both passionate foodies. And then Jamie knew that I was courageous and I was a disruptor. So when he announced that he wanted to really revolutionise the whole school meal space, what happened, he said, look, Jane, I realise I need some really good sort of robust help with this, and someone who's not afraid of really making a ripple in society. So I was the person that advised him, along with the team, as to how we can conquer the poor food that was served to school children. But as with any industry, as soon as you start pointing out what they're doing wrong, the people that have been doing that don't like it. So it was a real, a big learning experience for me to know that when you start poking a beast, then they react, because school meals had been atrocious for decades. And Jamie was the first one with his team when we pointed out to parents that actually you need to really look after the food that you're putting inside your child's body, because it makes an enormous difference.
So what do you think were the problems with school lunches or food at schools in general before you started this?
So I think it really depended on the school. I think there's a combination of factors. It can be the amount of money that schools were able or willing to put behind getting hold of good ingredients. It was, very much the British mentality over food is, well, it's just fuel. It's sort of, we weren't historically known for passionate foodies, like being, Mediterranean or Persian, or, so the British weren't very good at prioritising food, so budget was an issue. An issue still today is that a lot of schools didn't have their own kitchens, so that we could go into a school, and it still is the same as I say in some institutions, some schools, and say, look, this is the ideal, this is what you should be cooking on the premises. But if they don't have a kitchen, that's a real problem. So they were having to rely on these big contractors bringing in meals that really shouldn't have been brought into schools. And so a big success would be if we can get every school in the country to have a kitchen. And also I think that not enough time was given to mealtime. You probably knew, you're 13, I'm an awful lot older than you, and I knew even in my day, and I think it's still the same, you're rushed through to have a quick sort of 10-15 minutes, and no child is going to make the right choices in that. You want something quick, if you're quick, you've got to eat it, and then that doesn't sit well in the body. So I think there's a whole combination of factors that some of them we're still struggling with now.
So in my schools, children have complained about this in my school, that the portion size is one about this large cup of pasta, or one slice of pizza, or something like that. And do you think portion sizes should be large or small, and just do you think they should be improved?
So I think we also need to look at what is the weight and what's the height of the children in the school, because we are unfortunately heading for the American model, where obesity is 1 in 2, and that means that 1 in 2 children are struggling with holding too much weight. And we all know anyone who's different is more likely to be bullied. Anyone who's different is more likely to have anxiety. So I think portion size, there should be flexibility. And what happens is if you don't serve enough of a portion at the mealtime, which is probably what you've noticed with friends at school, is then you're more likely to want to snack afterwards. And then the snacks that are available aren't appropriate. So I think this whole notion, and I really think this is something that is very wrong within legislation of food, that you have to have an absolute value. So they've now said, oh, you only have so much protein, so much carbohydrate, so many fats. Well, that can be in a tiny portion, and yet if you're still hungry afterwards, then the young person is going to go off and binge on snack food. So I think we've got some things right, but as Marcus Rashford showed, you know, there are an awful lot of children now that are still struggling. So we've got a long way to go still.
So with like break times and lunch times in school, they serve puddings. Do you think that's like a good idea, or do you think they shouldn't do that?
It's hard to make generalisations, and I think if I was seen as the person that stopped all school puddings, then I don't think I'd be very popular at all. But I do think that the problem with the quick release sugars, which is what generally is found in school puddings, they give you a sugar spike, and that can make you, some people feel a bit hyper and sort of over energetic, and then you get the sugar crash. So then that's the late afternoon, you know, I'm exhausted, I can't do anything. So if they could have slow release sugar within the puddings, that would be better. But I also think we don't need to get into the trap of every day having to have a pudding. And then they don't feel special. You know, if it could be on days where maybe when everyone's been doing more sport, then, or it's been a longer day at school, then you have a pudding. But let's get out of this norm that you have to have a main course and a pudding, because that's also one of the reasons why we've got an obesity challenge.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what do you think should be like a basis? Like, what kind of foods do you think should be with school lunches?
So I think my priority, the top of the list, would be freshly cooked, so on the premises. And I think that we could keep food far simpler by looking, you mentioned pasta, you know, we could have a simple pasta dish with a nice salad or vegetables, then maybe some fruit afterwards. It's as simple as that. And no one can ever tell me that that costs more than actually someone, you know, with the complicated, highly processed foods, because it's also shocking how poor quality ingredients can still be expensive. So get a good quality ingredient, make it go further. And so I think the school dishes could be a simple fish pie, but you have a smaller portion of the fish pie but lots of vegetables, but it's better quality fish pie. So I think quality, because also what you notice when something's better quality, it doesn't have as many fillers, additives, preservatives, sugars in, which generally make you feel lousy in your body. They don't help you concentrate. They don't help you perform well at school. So if we can get the ingredients right, I think that's a good first step.
And what is your favourite food? Just any food.
Oh, it's like asking my favourite song or my favourite music. I know if my daughter, who is 19, were sitting here, she would say Mum's favourite food is cheese. So I am absolutely a cheese fiend, and because I don't actually have a sweet tooth, so I'm very lucky as a nutritionist not having a sweet tooth, but really good quality cheese. But that could be simply from we're up in Cumbria, we have fantastic cheeses up here, but equally a simple burrata with roasted tomatoes, and I'm very happy, thank you very much.
That's all the questions I have.
You did really well.
So thank you.
Thank you for your
You're
time.
really welcome.
Well done, Amy, that was great.
You can press stop on the voice thing and service and hearing because it's so hard.